to this week's Storytime to Go. This week we have More Bears, written by Kenn Nesbitt, illustrated by Troy Cummings, and published by Sourcebooks Jabberwocky. Once upon a time, there was a story. This story was a lovely story with absolutely no bears in it. Not a single bear anywhere. Then, one day...
More bears!
What? Who said that? The author of the story looked around the room, wondering where those voices had come from. Were those the voices of children shouting? Then he went back to writing. As I was saying, this story had absolutely no bears at all. The author was very certain about this.
More bears!
The author tried very, very hard to ignore the children who thought the story ought to have...
More bears!
Fine. This story had a bear. It's a cute little baby bear strolling through the book looking for...
More bears!
Now, hold on a second. The author of the story knew exactly how many bears it should have, and the author insisted there should only be...
More bears!
There should only be 2 bears. There. Happy now?
No.
Well, there was an adorable, cuddly-wuddly little bear named Mr. Fluffy and his mama bear, Stella, who always wore a yellow hat. Now, it happened that Stella and Mr. Fluffy, like all bears, were especially fond of...
More bears!
More bears. Of course, the author was just thinking that. The author was thinking that just to keep everyone happy, the story should have a papa bear, whose name, by the way, was Captain Picklehead, and a bear named Uncle Sheldon, who was bald and loved to play the ukulele. Now, where were we? Oh, yes.
More bears!
Stop that. How many bears do you want this story to have anyway?
A billion!
Do you really want to hear about Bobcat Sam, the bear who rode a pony, and Admiral Haversham, the English dancing bear, and Excellent Steve, the bear who just wanted to surf?
Yeah!
You do? Well, why didn't you say so? In that case, the author suddenly decided what the story really needed was...
More bears!
Yes, more bears. So the author added Astro Bear, who, by the way, was Bulgarian and always kept a hamster in his pocket, just in case. And then the author put in 3 more bears named Lester, Chester, Esther, and Floyd. Esther, Chester, Lester, Floyd. Wait, that's 4. Oh well, 4 is okay, because after all, this story really needed...
More bears!
It needed a bear named Lucky Eddie, who juggled carrots, and a bear named Elbow, who wasn't very smart and always wore his underpants on the outside of his regular pants, and a bear named 123, who even the author thought was a strange name for a bear. And since this probably wasn't enough, the author added even...
More bears!
The author added 6 bears on teeny pink bicycles, 2 bears reading comic books, 1 bear flying across the page in a cape and lederhosen, 3 more bears swinging through the trees and vines, a bear in a yellow submarine, several bears making cupcakes, an entire team of firefighting bears running across the page with hoses, ladders, and party balloons. The bears were hanging from the top of the page, the bears were sleeping in corners, and bears were standing on top of other bears. There were so many bears in the story that they couldn't all fit on the page. It was too crowded. So crowded that some of the bears started pushing other bears off the page and arguing, which made the author grumpy. And when authors get grumpy, they start rewriting, changing the story. In fact, the author was so grumpy that he told the bears to leave. And they did. After all, this was the author's story. They walked off the page. They rode off the page. They swung, surfed, danced, climbed, and ran, and even somersaulted off the page. At last, all the bears were gone, and the author smiled. Finally, the author had a story with no bears in it. A lovely story with not a single bear anywhere. Just the way the author wanted it. Because, you see, the author was quite certain that this story should have absolutely
more chickens!
more chickens. we have more bears and more chickens. I hope you enjoyed the book. Welcome to Storytime to Go. This week we have More Bears by Nesbitt and illustrated by Cummings.